Cade McNamara speaks. We hear from the Hawkeye quarterback as he gets ready for the 2024 season. Plus some more player interviews. David Eickholt was there. He stops by to talk about what he heard and a sellout already for Iowa football. All today, Locked On Hawkeye.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes Podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. If you're on the YouTube side, hit that subscribe button. Just takes a moment. If you're on the podcast side listening, hit us up with a 5-star review. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs have finished up. Hockey, NBA, it's over. The sports just stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We start off today with a look at Iowa football. The build up of the summer continues, and we're starting to make our way downhill. It's crazy to think, but yes, we're on the backside of things as we count down to kickoff at the end of August in the first game of the season, as Illinois State will come to town. Of course, Iowa State after that one, and some notes about the Cy-Hawk game coming your way. But an opportunity yesterday for the beat members of the media to talk to some Iowa football players, including, most importantly, Cade McNamara. Now, in yesterday's podcast, we talked a lot about that. Everydayers, you know my thoughts on Cade McNamara, what he needs to do, and what maybe a successful baseline for McNamara is going to be, short of staying healthy all season long. And we broke that down a lot yesterday. But just hearing from him and some interesting notes coming in. First of all, adding weight. That's something that he has worked to do. Now, he got as big as 225 and has slimmed down a little bit since then. Looks like he wants to play probably in that 205 to 210 pound range. Something like that is what you're looking for Cade McNamara. He said last year he was playing just under 200 pounds. So a little bit of extra size, take a few more hits. Maybe that's what you're hoping for. And obviously keeping him upright is paramount to this football season. A couple other things from Cade McNamara, and he doesn't lack for confidence. You can tell he's a quarterback. He just comes in there. He has that sense of understanding what people want to hear, saying the things that help out, getting the quote book, those kind of things, and did a lot. But the biggest part is he's healthy. And he said he's been 100% for a while, that he's been able to go out there and do basically everything that you hope to see for Cade McNamara. That's important. Now, he's going to play this season in a knee brace, and anybody that's played with a knee brace, and certainly a football knee brace, will tell you it is debilitating. It's going to take down a little bit of the speed. Now, it's not to say Cade McNamara is a speedster. He's not. He's not an elite level runner. He's probably not even an average runner. He's going to be better than Deacon Hill. He's going to be better than the Cade McNamara that we saw at the beginning of last season. The impact of that injury that he had a year ago on the quad, it was a huge change for what he is. We're not talking Michael Vick. We're not talking Brad Banks. We're not talking about even a Drew Tate, but he is a guy that can get the first down. Everything's covered downfield. He's rolling out. He can tuck it and get 6 yards on 3rd and 5. Those are the little things, because we didn't see that a year ago with his backup in Deacon Hill. And we didn't see a ton of it, though we saw the physical running for Nate Stanley. Getting that back. We didn't see it from Spencer Petras. That was certainly not a part of his game. Getting just a little element back. They're going to be an improvement over the two guys that I mentioned, but let's not set our sights too high on that. And also a guy coming off of back-to-back seasons being lost by injury. A couple other ones that I thought were interesting, and saw all these videos. Shout out to my guy, Tom Kakert from Hawkeye Report, David Eickholt, 24/7. Both those guys had a lot of the videos up on their websites, and you can take a peek at them if you like. Maybe kind of a forgotten position, because it's wide receiver at Iowa, is wide receiver. And going through, we've talked a ton about Caleb Brown. We've talked about the importance of Seth Anderson. Has to make a big step forward this year. I mean, they need him at minimum just to be an okay Big Ten receiver. They have to have it. They just do. If this offense is going to click and become okay, they need that. And I think both those guys can get there. But we haven't talked a whole lot about Jacob Gill. Jacob Gill, the Northwestern transfer, comes in with Brendan Sullivan. They were roommates when they were at Northwestern. I had some things to say about the similarities and some of the differences between the two football programs, which I thought pretty interesting. Did talk a little bit about there being more discipline inside the Iowa program, which was, I guess, a little bit of an eye-opening moment. Look, Jacob Gill's played. He's played in the Big Ten. We're not talking about monster numbers again, but we're looking for baselines here. We're looking for realistic expectations. If he can average 2.5 catches a game, there'll be a game that he has 6. There'll be another one he has 1, but at 2.5 catches, he catches 30 balls this year as the number 3 receiver. That's something to shoot for, and I think that's a realistic expectation. Now, that has surpassed what he's done in his career, but the snaps are available. He's got 2 years of eligibility. Obviously, he understands how to play at this level. We haven't seen a ton of it out of those other 2 guys, so that's kind of where I am with Jacob Gill, and I think a guy that maybe we need to talk about a little bit more. Now, is he going to get those reps, or is it going to go another direction? And the direction I'm going was Jarrett Bowie. So Jarrett Bowie is a guy that out of Florida, when we talked to our recruiting analyst here on Locked On, he's a Florida-based guy, and we really like Jarrett Bowie coming in. Thought he was criminally underrated in the recruiting services from what we saw in his career. However, was on the travel team last year. That's a start, right? When you start with that component to it, you're in good shape. A guy that goes as a true freshman, got out there, got some reps, still maintained his redshirt status. If Jarrett Bowie can become a guy that is consistent, that's able to go out there and be a guy that can beat people for jump balls, can go out there, make some plays with his speed. 6'1", 200 pounds, they need it. We know the importance of the wide receiver position and what Iowa needs at that spot. But good to hear from both of those guys and start to think about those wide receivers. It's not paramount that Iowa has elite level receivers, and we've seen that in the past. Iowa has been able to be good and a winning football team without high level wide receivers. However, it just makes things much simpler when you have somebody like that. Well, today is David Eickholt's birthday. We're going to talk with him, the operator of Hawkeye Insider, part of 24/7 Sports. He was there talking to some of the players, also was part of the media availability earlier this week with both Iowa women and Iowa men basketball availability. So we'll talk a little hoops and a lot of football coming up with the birthday boy, David Eickholt. We'll do that as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I just never want them to stop. But the playoffs have finished up. Fewer and fewer games to bet on. Well, the sports just don't sports like you want them to. FanDuel, though, they're letting me get into the sports and keep them going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the FanDuel app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And if you know me, I'm in the mood a bunch. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers. That's right, new and existing customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. We got the British Open that opens up tomorrow, bright and early. That'll be 12:30 Central Time that the first peg will be put in the ground to open things up. If you love betting golf like me, you are set. Major League Baseball comes back on Friday. How about this? They got the lineup for the WNBA All-Star Game. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese teaming up as they face off against the Olympic basketball team. That's coming up on Saturday. 4.5 is the number. The Olympic team is favored over the WNBA All-Stars. They got it all at FanDuel. So what you want to do right now, go to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Well, let's get to him. He's the birthday boy. David Eickholt joins us. HBD, David Eickholt. How are you?
Hey, appreciate that, guys. I'm doing well. Like you said, it's been a busy couple of days, and maybe I should have taken an early birthday trip to Vegas because that sounds like that was a lot of fun.
No, it was a blast, and I'm starting to realize there must be a height requirement to write for 247 because Bussy's a big dude, and you're a big dude. I had no idea. Anyway,
Eicholt's all a 6'4".
Yeah, so's Bussy. He is.
Eickholt claims he's taller.
Does he? Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it's a birthday.
Don't give him that. Don't give him that.
So let's go back to the week. As you said, it's been a busy week, and it's certainly appreciated by talkers and readers and viewers, etc. Let's start with the women. Lucy Olson, I saw your tweets. She impressed you. And it's probably easy to do, right? She's a shooter, and she was making a whole bunch of them. But just your thoughts to see Lucy Olson on the field with her new Iowa teammate, or on the court with her new Iowa teammates. Your thoughts on the a transfer that's certainly got some huge shoes to fill, but certainly opening some eyes.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, we watched her for about 2 hours of live practice. She did not miss one mid-range shot in the 2 games. And, I do think that her 3-point percentage needs to continue to improve. After last season, it kind of fell off a bit, I believe about 29%. She told me yesterday she's not worried about it because of how good of a shooter she knows she is. But you talk about a perfect culture fit. I mean, watching Lucy interact with her teammates, you cannot tell if she's been here for a month or if she's been here for 3 years. And Jan Jensen told us that she wishes she was able to coach Lucy for all of those years. But, nobody expects her to be Caitlin Clark. Anybody I think that's reasonable does not expect her to be Caitlin Clark. She's a different type of player than Caitlin Clark in terms of the style of point guard. I don't think she'll be pulling it from 30 feet, but she has a great mid-range game. She's more wiry than I thought. I think that helps her defensively on the perimeter. She goes to the glass strong. She's not afraid to go up against some bigger posts, has a variety of different moves that she can do. But it really is not going to surprise me if she ends up being the surprise of the Big Ten this year, because when she entered the portal, myself and a lot of others were saying how good of an addition this would be for Iowa. After being able to watch her and the way this team sort of made up, it's really not going to surprise me if Lucy Olson ends up being first team All Big Ten and a potential All-American. I mean, I think she certainly has that type of ceiling. Now, I don't know how good Iowa is going to be as a team at this point, but as far as Lucy Olson, I mean, the elite point guard play, it's going to be different, but the elite point guard play is not going to drop off by any means.
With that, you look at expectations for this team. No Caitlin, no Kate Martin, Gabby moves on. Are we talking fringe top 25 team? I mean, make the second round type of team. Where's your expectations at this point? Obviously, knowing we still got a long ways to go before the season. What's a realistic expectation in your mind?
Yeah, I'm actually higher on them than most, Trent. I mean, I do think most people, once the season gets closer, I think they'll expect Iowa to be a top 25 team, maybe top 20. I see this as a group that I almost expect to host the NCAA tournament again. I think they can be a top 4 seed. Being able to watch Ava Hayden, the new 6'4" post, I think she brings a lot of unique traits to the table. I talked to Iowa assistant coach Raina Harmon last week, and she told me that the first time she saw Ava play, she got straight Megan Gustafson vibes. And I don't think you throw that term around lightly. I know we all talk about Caitlin Clark, but we all know that's in Iowa that Megan Gustafson really helped break that glass ceiling for Iowa women's basketball, for the Big Ten Conference as well, as far as the National Player of the Year goes. And Ava's got really great athleticism. She's a shot blocker. She can run the floor in transition, has a mid-range game. I think she needs to get stronger as far as setting screens and putting some more post moves to memory. But she's going to be really good, especially under the tutelage of Jan Jensen. And then Sydney Falter's three-point shooting in the couple practices that we've been able to see, it looks more consistent. I think she looks confident. We have not been able to see Hannah Stolke quite yet, but this was expected. She's going to be good to go by the time, the fall camp and everything sort of revs up. So again, I'm higher on them than most. I think certainly they have a strong chance at being a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. As far as the Big Ten, I think the 3 teams I would set them behind at this point, USC might be my preseason number 1, even with South Carolina coming back. USC is unbelievably loaded. UCLA, I think you can make a claim that Ohio State is going to be above Iowa this year, but I don't think you can drop Iowa below the top 4 in the Big Ten. I really think that they're going to have a very strong team this year.
David Eickholt is joining us, HawkeyeInsider.com 24/7 Sports. Well, let's go to the men. And Lucy Olson's certainly a name that a lot of people were using over the last couple of days. So was Shedeur Traore. And this is a kid that, it's been a while since I had this kind of athleticism. I've just seen him play, on TV or on X, etc. But it jumps off the screen. It really does. What do you see when you see him in person?
Yeah, he's better than I thought. I mean, I talked about it before when Iowa got his commitment. I thought he'd be a really good fit. I think he brings a lot to the table as far as rebounding, as far as defensive versatility goes. But this might be among the most athletic teams that Iowa's had, at least since I got here in 2018. Chris Taggio is another absolute freak athlete. I don't know how much he's going to play this year. He told me that he's really focused on learning and growing in his new role. And Chris has only been playing basketball for about 6 or 7 years. Played in Canada, played in Mexico City, played a little bit of FIBA rules as far as being all over the place. So I think he's going to learn the college game a little bit more. But Traore is a guy that if you get in transition, he's looking to dunk over you. We saw a few highlights of Brock Harding to Seydou Traore in transition during some of the drills. He's not afraid to pull up from three, a very strong rebounder. And it's a guy that I think is comfortable guarding positions 1 to 4 or maybe an undersized 5. I'm very, very excited about how he fits in with this team. I think he's going to be the starting 4 at the start of the season. But, you know, like you mentioned, I think that this is going to be a more athletic team. And Frank McCaffrey also mentioned that he feels like Iowa has a lot more front court depth than they've had over the past couple of seasons. And they talked about changing some things defensively. And because they have more front court depth, they're allowed to do different things. If guys get in foul trouble, you know, Chris Taggio can go in there. Lajay Dembele, who's another great athlete that I think we saw flashes of last year, if he can string together consistency. And then Owen Freeman's another 20 pounds heavier. He's up to about 242 to 244 right now. So there's a lot of excitement about what I think this Iowa team can do. But as you guys know, and as everybody that watches Iowa basketball knows, scoring points is not going to be a problem.
Right.
Can they crash the glass, and can they stop open three-pointers? I think that's going to be the two big things. But I think that I don't know how good this team's going to be quite yet. But as far as the entertainment value, there's athleticism, there's shooting. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch, I think.
Same question we had on the women's basketball front. What's your expectation for this men's team? I know I was maybe ahead of the curve on this one. I thought I liked what we saw from Traore. I thought that Phil Well was the kind of guy that you need, just a competent, solid point guard and helping out with Brock Harding at that spot. I thought they were going to be a tournament team before kind of this. Feels like the bandwagon's starting to fill up. Where are you with the men team?
Yeah, I mean, I expect them to make the NCAA tournament again. I think it's a disappointment if they don't. I think this is a team that if they can figure things out defensively, I would argue I think there's more shooting on this team than there was last year. I think Price Sanford's capable of pulling up from three. Sean Block just released a VIP kind of source to say about this basketball team. Brock Harding's three-point shot has improved. I'm still very curious to see where Lajay Dembele fits into this team because, again, I love his ceiling. Owen Freeman is now working on mid-range shots and corner three-point shots. And, you know, we all loved what we saw out of him last year, especially in that mid to late season run. If he has a jump shot, he's going to be very, very, very tough to guard, especially if he stays in foul trouble as well. So I expect them to make the NCAA tournament. I do not expect them to be a bubble team. I think it's a little bit of a disappointment if they are a bubble team. I think the Big Ten is going to be loaded. But at the same time, you look at all this experience that Iowa has, and Drew Thelwell also brings this to the table. That is just a skill that transfers to every single level, guys. He wins basketball games. Mm-hmm. He's been a part of winning teams. He's the winningest player in Morehead State basketball history with 1 year of eligibility left. Him and Brock Harding can share the floor, share the point guard duties. They each bring something different to the table. This roster, as far as makeup-wise, is probably one of my favorite Fran rosters that there has been in the past couple of years. It just seems like there's at least somewhat decent depth across the board, but they can play with different styles and they have more athleticism. They can do different things defensively. So again, they have to make the pieces work. It's not going to be always a smooth transition. There will be ups and downs, but I do think that, you know, there should be some cautious optimism there.
David Eickholt, before we switch to football, and this concerns a former Hawkeye. Any news on Kate Martin? That looked bad.
Yeah, we have not heard anything. I mean, it looks bad. I think the biggest thing that you can take away from it is she did go back on the bench. Yep. She was standing up. She was walking unassisted. I did not want to speculate what it was, especially at the time. I think it's going to be more of an ankle thing. I don't think people are worried about the Achilles anymore because I know there are some rumblings that it looked like an Achilles, but you know, with her walking around, with her going back to the bench, she's not going back to the bench if it's an Achilles. Yeah. I think this is probably going to be an ankle sprain that keeps her out 3 or 4 weeks. This is nothing official, but this is kind of what's circulating behind the scenes right now. But I think she avoided a major, major scare. And, you know, thank goodness for her because that team is, I know they lost last night to the Sky. That team's starting to piece some things together. I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if they're back in the WNBA finals, and Kate Martin might be flexing a ring by the end of the year.
How about that?
Yeah, and having a month to go, that definitely helps before.
And the time off.
Yeah, the Aces are back on the floor. That's going to certainly help Kate Martin. Speaking of that, how forward are you looking to Saturday night? Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese teaming up against Team USA. That should be a fun night, and I'm going to guess a pretty big TV number.
Yeah.
I want to see the All-Stars go at the Olympic team. I actually think this is going to be a very competitive basketball game because I don't think Caitlin's going to say too much. But guys, you've watched her for how many years? She's as competitive as they come. Angel Reese is competitive as they come.
Yeah.
They are going to try to go at some of these vets. And I would love it just for the chaos. If somehow, some way, the All-Star team beats the Olympic team,
oh my.
What's the discourse on everything? Because, I mean, I would argue that's probably one of the biggest upsets in the sports history. I mean, this is a USA women's Olympic team that has won, 6 straight Olympic gold medals?
They haven't been close.
And if Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese combine for 40 points, 20 boards, and 13 assists, guys, I just want the chaos. I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's going to be fascinating. That's a Saturday night at 7?
Right in that range.
Yeah, I think in that range.
I believe it's about 7 o'clock.
7:30 on ABC.
ABC's got it. So the big brand. How about that? That'll do a massive number. Well, let's get to football. Cade McNamara, very confident Cade McNamara. I love that about a quarterback. I do. You have to have it. And he certainly had that on full display yesterday. You've talked to him since he's been there. Did you notice the difference with McNamara?
I mean, I think he was just incredibly transparent. I thought he was very reflective and honest about the way the last few months have gone. But, I mean, it's Cade McNamara. He's as confident as ever. He talked about going out there and proving it every single day. His teammates still believe in him. But he did mention to us that the biggest thing for him was sitting on the sideline. It was a huge psychological and mental barrier to accept the fact that he was injured because he watched the way the offense struggled. And as a competitor, as a quarterback, he felt like he could have made a difference. Now, he said he did not go to what degree of a difference he could have made. But, you know, being a guy that has played in the college football playoff, being a guy that's won a Big Ten championship, he really felt like he could have gone out there and made a difference. But he said he loves Tim Lester. Him and Tim Lester meet. They're very open about, you know, switching some plays up. Lester is very receptive to what McNamara has to say about certain routes or certain schemes. So they've really formed some good stuff together. But Cade said he's really over the barrier. He's going to wear a brace during the games. He's been advised to. But he's not going to wear it to practice. He doesn't feel like he needs it, but he wants to listen to the coaches and trainers. But he said as far as planting that front foot when he throws, he said that mental hurdle, that's completely escaped him. He's all in on it. So the very right words to say, but just like everything else, the offense, guys, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, and we have a whole lot of that. Offensive line is going to be a question. You know, another one that I've kind of got into a little bit deeper, that lack of depth, at least depth that we know about at defensive line. I just go back to 2010, great season, huge expectations coming off of 2009. And the difference was fourth quarters. They just didn't have the gas because they didn't have depth at defensive line. Who are some names to look at that can help out both the defensive end and defensive tackle and build that depth this season?
Well, I'll tell you, it's my breakout guy from last year. And yes, he's going to get a lot of starts this year, and he's going to be playing. I think Deontay Craig's in for a massive.
I'm right there.
I just think that his explosiveness on the first step, I think you know what's great about this also, about this college football game that's come out, guys? It's an extra motivator for players that felt like they were slighted.
That's true.
And Deontay Craig absolutely felt like he got slighted. As we were waiting for Cade the other day, he was up in the, not the foyer, but he was in the upstairs dining area. He was kind of looking down at us. And I said, Deontay, how do you feel about your EA rating? He said, man, he's shaking his head. You already know I'm about to make him pay. So I'm like, eyebrows raised a little bit, the ears perk up. I'm like, all right, I'm looking at that. So I think Deontay Craig's going to be a guy to keep an eye on. Jeremiah Pittman, I think a defensive tackle could see some rotational snaps. That is a big body guy that's been in the process for a couple of years. I think there's going to be a lot of room for him to have some snaps between Aaron Graves, who I think could have an NFL decision make at the end of the year, and Y.A. Black, who's going to be a force on the edge as well. But I'd also keep an eye on Max Llewellyn. I think Max Llewellyn, Ethan Herquette, those guys. I think as far as name recognition goes, I think Iowa's defensive line depth is fine. But as far as known stars of the defensive line, we need to see some guys take a step forward. So again, I'm keeping an eye on Aaron Graves and Deontay Craig as being those guys that at least catapult themselves to the level of a Joe Evans, not like a Davion Nixon or a Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year or anything, but guys that you just continue to hear their names get brought up time and time again.
Where's Epinessa's younger brother going? Did I see one of the Floridas? Was it Miami?
Miami.
Is he in? Is he signed there?
He is not signed there. He is not committed there. And I will say this, that camp is not letting anything through. I think if there's anything that's being brought out as far as forecast goes, it's from their own local sources. Very, very few sources to Epinesa and Jose Epinesa. I think they're taking the time with the process. I think anybody's guess is as good as mine right now. I think Iowa still has a strong chance, but I know Utah feels really good where they're at. Missouri, I think, has gone on a little bit of the back burner, but I know they're still making a strong push. Penn State, I think, is out of it. But Miami certainly can still be a school to keep an eye on. So I hate to avoid the question, guys, but it's just everybody's guess is as good as mine right now. And you guys know the Epinesa family. They're very, very tight knit. They do not allow too much to come out.
Happy birthday, David Eickholt. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, guys. Take care. Have a good week.
Yep. Good to talk to you. David Eickholt, HawkeyeInsider.com, part of 24/7 Sports. Good stuff.
Thank you to David Eickholt, and a happy birthday to him. We continue in an update on tickets. We got a sellout at Kinnick Stadium, and your opportunity to get tickets might not be many opportunities unless you're going secondary market. We'll talk about that as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. All right, here we go. Iowa State is sold out. No surprise on this one. The tickets still not available to the general public, though that will happen tomorrow, Thursday, 9 a.m. So if you're looking to get your hands on some ducats for Iowa football this year, that will be your opportunity without going to the secondary market and having to look on Gametime and finding out the tickets that you want for the upcoming season. Less than 500 tickets remain for the matchup against Troy, September 14th. That's the third game of the season. About 1,600 left for the Illinois State game, the home opener on August 31st at 11 a.m. Northwestern, Wisconsin, and Nebraska also right in that range for those 4 games. And then a little bit more, 2,100 tickets available for the Washington game. A little bit surprised by that one on October 12th. A new opponent coming in Washington, making their way to Kinnick Stadium in their first year in the Big Ten. A bit of a surprise. Look, Cyhawk is going to be immense. You can scoff at Iowa State. You can laugh at them. You can make fun of them. And I think we've all done that at differing times. However, they have a good football team back. And a year ago, Iowa got them over in Jack Trice Stadium. That was a team that was very inexperienced, very young. Well, now they're one of the most experienced teams in the country. They are going to be fired up, ready for the game. They have talent on both sides. You saw Rocco Becht and the improvement that he made. And we talked about, obviously, the gambling situation, how much it sucked for Noah Shannon a year ago. Iowa State was impacted. They lost their starting quarterback before the year with Hunter Deckers. Now, Rocco Becht turned out to be an incredibly good quarterback. It's going to be a good game. And the point spread tells you as much. Iowa, just a 2.5-point favorite against the Cyclones at home at Kinnick Stadium. And remember, Kinnick Stadium, it's not a 3-point home advantage. It's one of the biggest in college football. Some sportsbook operators have them as a 5-point home field advantage inside of Kinnick Stadium, meaning that Iowa State would be favored by some of these operators on a neutral field. Going to be a good one. It's a sellout, and hopefully there isn't a whole lot of Cardinal and Gold inside Kinnick for this one. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We'll be back with you tomorrow. We got some recruiting updates to get into. We'll continue our positional previews. We got through quarterback, but we have a lot more for you here in the coming days and weeks as we make our way through July and into August in Iowa football. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Hey, also want to mention to you, if you're watching Fox Sports or ESPN all day and you have to turn down the volume because of all that shouting, it's time to make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day. It's going to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, all streaming 24/7 on YouTube or also on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We got you covered on the Hawkeyes. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Go Hawks.